You were never meant to chase what was already yours. The moment you had to run after it was the moment it ran from truth. That's the quote they'll feel in their chest when they're all alone, staring at their screen, wondering why the attention dried up. My friends, the second you had to beg for a response, fight for a breadcrumb of love, or convince someone of your worth, that's the second the truth slapped you in the face. It was never yours. They didn't reject you. They exposed themselves. Before we go deeper, I need you to pause. Press that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and stay with me till the very end, because this one might just pull you out of the grave they left you in. Hey folks, imagine this. You walk into a store holding a $10,000 diamond. The cashier looks at it, scoffs and says, "That's not worth anything." Now, do you believe them and throw it in the trash, or do you realize they don't even have the tools to recognize its value? That's exactly what you did every time you begged someone to see your worth. You handed your heart, your loyalty, your energy to people too broke, emotionally and spiritually, to afford it. And instead of walking away, you started offering discounts. They didn't treat you badly because you were worthless. They treated you badly because you kept staying. They saw they could ignore your texts, disrespect your boundaries, flirt with others, ghost you, cheat, lie, and still you stayed. You didn't look like someone who knew what they deserved. You looked like someone willing to trade diamonds for attention, and they took advantage of that. My friends, love doesn't make you beg. Real love doesn't hide behind silence. It doesn't show up only when it's convenient. If you had to chase it, explain yourself constantly, or cry alone while they acted like nothing happened. Newsflash. That was never love. That was manipulation. That was control. That was ego feeding off your pain like a leech drinks blood. And the more you chased, the more they ran. Not because you weren't enough, but because they knew you hadn't realized you were more than enough. Some of you are still checking your phone, still refreshing their profile, still wondering if maybe, just maybe, they'll come back. And you know what? Maybe they will, but not because they love you. They'll come back when they feel your silence, when they realize the emotional buffet is closed and they've been locked out of your peace. But by then, you better be gone. Not pretending to be gone, not hiding and hoping they reach out. Gone. Mentally, spiritually, emotionally, gone. Because they don't deserve the version of you who's still bleeding for someone who walked away like you were nothing but trash on the curb. Let me say it clearly. You are not garbage. You are not a doormat. You are not a backup plan. You are not a placeholder while they test the waters with someone else. You are the storm they thought they could dance in without getting struck. You are the home they left for cheap thrills, only to realize those thrills had no roof, no warmth, no soul. You are the one they'll cry for in silence, but too prideful to admit. And that's not your problem. That's their karma. As the Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, we suffer not from the events in our lives, but from our judgment about them. And you, my friend, have been judging yourself through the lens of people too blind to see you. But not anymore. Because starting now, you stop chasing, you stop explaining, you stop proving, you rise, you rebuild, you become the version of yourself they'll only ever see in dreams and regrets. So if you're done playing games with people who treated you like an option, then write this in the comments right now. I don't chase. Say it like a vow. Say it for your past self. Say it for your healed self. Say it for the version of you that's rising from the ashes and never looking back. And if this hit you, if this broke something open in you, smash that like button, subscribe for what's coming next, and stay locked in. Because we're just getting started. Number 1. The lie you believed. If you try hard enough, they'll choose you. You don't chase the sun, you rise with it. Let that hit you. You don't sprint after light like a beggar crawling for warmth, you rise beside it. But some of you forgot that. You convinced yourself that if you tried harder, loved louder, gave more, stayed longer, then maybe, just maybe, they'd finally choose you. That's the lie that turned your dignity into dust. That's the lie that had you begging at the feet of someone who wouldn't have knelt for you if the world was ending. And I need you to face this. You weren't being loyal. You were being used. You weren't being loving. You were being drained. They didn't ignore you because they didn't see your message. They ignored you because they saw your desperation and knew you'd still show up tomorrow. They didn't cheat because they were confused. They cheated because they knew you'd forgive them again. They didn't treat you like trash because they didn't know your worth. They treated you like trash because you forgot it first. Hey folks, imagine this. You're in a garden. You've got this plant in front of you, wilted, brown, dead, no roots left, no life. But every day you show up with a watering can. You beg it to grow. You pour more water, more sunlight, more care, more energy. You skip your meals, you cancel plans, you stop sleeping, and still it doesn't grow. That's what you were doing. You were pouring your soul into someone who was emotionally dead and didn't even want to grow. And you called it love. But here's what you didn't realize. Watering a dead plant doesn't revive it. It just floods the soil, drowns everything around it, and eventually it rots you too. Let's be honest now. How many nights did you sit there asking yourself, why am I not enough? Why do they choose everyone else but me? What am I doing wrong? You weren't doing anything wrong. The wrong began the moment you decided that someone's inability to love was your fault, that if you gave more of yourself, they'd finally see you. But my friends, someone who doesn't want to see you never will. They're not blind. They're just focused on someone else. And that someone usually doesn't even care about them either. You thought if you just kept chasing, they'd eventually stop running, but all that did was teach them they never had to stop, because you'd always be one text away, one apology away, one silent treatment away from crawling back into their arms like a doormat they wipe their lies on. Let's break this down. You were sold a lie by fairy tales, by media, by broken parents, by people who never healed their own wounds, that if you work hard enough, you deserve love. But love is not a reward. It's not something you earn through suffering. You don't bleed for it, shrink for it, abandon yourself for it. Love, my friends, is either freely given or it's just performance. You became the overachiever in someone else's game. You were auditioning for a role that didn't exist anymore, running in a maze with no exit while they watched from the sidelines and laughed. And they had the audacity to say, "You're too much." No, you were too available. You made yourself too cheap in the name of love. You handed them the keys to your soul and let them graffiti it with betrayal, and now you're shocked that they walked away. My friends, some people don't want love. They want to be worshipped. They want someone they can ignore until they're bored, pick up like a toy, then throw away again when it stops being fun. And every time you came back, you taught them it was okay to leave. You should be furious, not at them, but at the version of you who gave away your crown for crumbs, at the version of you who became the emotional janitor for someone else's mess, at the version of you who cried behind closed doors while they posted pictures pretending you didn't exist. They didn't choose you, not because you weren't enough, but because you were too real for their fake world. They didn't choose you because choosing you meant growing up, facing their trauma, healing their ego, and they weren't ready for that, so they chose cheap, they chose surface, they chose easy. But you were the ocean, and they were looking for puddles. That's why it hurt. That's why you kept chasing. Because deep down, you thought your love could fix them. You thought your effort could fill their emptiness. But people can only meet you as deeply as they've met themselves, and they were strangers to their own soul. So stop trying to hand your heart to someone who doesn't even know how to hold their own. And let's be real, it's going to hurt. Because walking away from what you thought was love will always feel like failure at first. But that pain is clarity. That's silence after the chase. That's peace knocking on your door, and you owe it to yourself to answer. I need you to stop asking, why didn't they love me? And start asking, why didn't I walk away the first time they made me feel unloved? Because that's where your healing begins. That's where the glow-up starts. Not when they miss you, but when you stop missing the old version of yourself that tolerated being missed like a backup plan. So now you rise, not to make them regret, but because staying small for someone else's comfort was the real betrayal. You rise because you're done being the emotional landfill for people who only knew how to dump, not love. You rise because you remember now you were the sun all along, and you don't chase the sun, you rise with it. Say this with me right now. I was not born to beg for what sees no value in me. Write it in the comments. Show them, show yourself, show the world around you that your energy is sacred, and you're done wasting it on people who can't even hold space for their own shadow, let alone your light. Because what's coming next? Oh, it's not just healing, it's transformation. Stay with me. Number 2, chasing isn't love, it's delayed self-respect. Chasing isn't love, it's delayed self-respect. They told you it was romantic, that going after what you want shows strength, shows loyalty, shows love. But my friends, let's cut the fairy tales. Chasing someone who ignores you is not romantic, it's traumatic. It's not loyalty, it's self-betrayal. It's not fighting for love, it's teaching them that you have no boundaries, no backbone, and no self-worth left to protect. Every time you chase someone who didn't value you, you didn't prove your love, you postponed your healing. Hey folks, picture this. You're in a maze. You didn't build it. They did. They control the walls, the turns, the dead ends. And every time you think you're getting closer, they shift the structure. Just a little more effort, just one more chance, one more message, one more apology for something they did wrong. But no matter how much you run, you never reach the center, because it was never about reaching them. It was always about them watching you run. They don't want a relationship. They want validation. They don't want a partner. They want proof that they're still in control, that someone still needs them, that they're worth something, even if it's at the cost of your dignity. And you keep chasing, thinking that if you just show how loyal, how forgiving, how emotionally available you are, they'll finally stop. They won't. Because here's the ugly truth. Every time you chase them, you train them. You train them to believe they are the prize, and you are the beggar. You train them to expect your return. You teach them that your love is on discount, that your soul comes with no price tag, no requirements, no respect attached. And when love becomes that easy to access, it's no longer seen as sacred. It's seen as a doormat, something to wipe their dirt on, not something to protect. Let's really break this open. Some of you were conditioned to think that love has to hurt, that if they're pulling away, it's your job to pull harder, that if they ghosted you, you must have done something wrong, that if they're cold, you just need to warm them up with more patience, more kindness, more overcompensation. You became a therapist, a cheerleader, a healer, all for someone who wouldn't even give you the decency of consistent communication. And they made you feel like you were the problem, that you were too clingy, too emotional, too intense. But my friends, you weren't too much. You were just too available to someone who wanted nothing real. And every time you ran after them, you were abandoning the one person who actually needed your love most, you. That's the trap of chasing. It's not just about running after someone, it's about running away from yourself, from your standards, from your inner peace, from your self-respect. You told yourself, this is love, but what it really was you putting yourself last and calling it romantic. And let's be honest, it's not easy to stop. The chase becomes a drug, the idea that maybe this time they'll stay, maybe this time they'll reply, maybe this time they'll choose you. But here's what I want you to hear loud and clear. If they didn't choose you the first time, the second time, the third time, then they never wanted you. They wanted your effort, your attention, your presence, but not you. Not fully, not truly, not in the way you deserved. Every time you chased them, they saw it as confirmation. I can treat them any way I want, they'll still come back. And that made them value you less, not more. The more you showed up, the more invisible you became. That's the psychological twist most people miss. Chasing does not earn love, it erases identity. And now you're exhausted, you're tired of proving, tired of explaining, tired of being a one-person rescue mission for someone who never wanted to be saved. And that tiredness, that's your soul begging you to stop. That's your higher self whispering, this is not love, this is self-abandonment dressed as romance. So today, let's burn the map. Let's exit the maze. Let's stop begging for someone to see your worth and start standing in it like you own it. Because the second you stop chasing is the second your healing begins. The moment you stop proving is the moment your value rises in their mind. Not because they suddenly grew up, but because silence makes people reflect in ways your words never could. Say this with me now. Every step I take away from what ignores me is a step toward peace. Drop it in the comments, not just for them, for you. Show them, show yourself, show the world that you've stopped running after chaos and started walking toward your power. And stay with me, my friends. Because what comes next? It's the part where they realize they lost you, and not just your love, your light. Let's go. Number 3, why they wanted you to chase, even if they didn't want you. Some don't want love, they want to be worshipped. That right there, that's the dagger of truth they'll never admit out loud. Because if they did, they'd have to confront the fact that they never wanted a relationship. They wanted a fan club. They didn't crave connection. They craved control. They weren't looking for a partner to walk beside. They were looking for someone to follow behind them, clapping at every step, begging for approval, addicted to crumbs. And you, my friend, were the supplier. Let's get brutally honest here. They didn't want you to love them. They wanted you to need them. And every time you reached out, every time you apologized for things you didn't do, every time you sat in silence waiting for them to come around, you fed them. Not with love, but with power. Emotional power. Ego power. The kind of power that says, I can ignore you, hurt you, belittle you, and you'll still show up tomorrow. They didn't need to commit. Why would they? They already had everything they needed. Your texts, your attention, your energy, your loyalty, all on tap. You were pouring gallons of devotion into someone who wasn't even thirsty. They weren't trying to build a connection. They were building a throne, and they wanted you kneeling beside it, worshipping their silence as if it meant something deep. It didn't. It meant control. My friends, this wasn't love. This was supply and demand. You had the love. They had the need to be adored. And instead of meeting in the middle with mutual respect, they stayed on top, feeding off your vulnerability like a leech feeds off blood. And here's what most people don't tell you. The more they saw you chase, the less they respected you. Because deep down, they knew they weren't showing up for you. They knew they weren't matching your energy. They knew they weren't real. And every time you chased that illusion, you gave them permission to keep being fake. They didn't want to be loved for who they were. They wanted to be loved despite who they were. Despite the lies, the distance, the games, the disrespect. And you, because you have a good heart, you tried. You thought if you just held on a little longer, if you just loved them a little deeper, they'd wake up. But they didn't, because they never slept. They were wide awake, and they liked the view from their pedestal. Let's go even deeper. They didn't respond to your love because they feared it. Real love demands vulnerability. It asks for truth. It challenges the ego. And for someone who lives off performance, who thrives on being chased, who craves the power of your longing, love is terrifying. Because love levels the playing field. Love says, "You're not above me, we're in this together." And they couldn't handle that. So instead, they kept the imbalance. They stayed distant. They stayed unavailable. And you stayed confused. But confusion isn't love. Anxiety isn't attraction. Mixed signals aren't chemistry, they're manipulation, emotional manipulation, designed to keep you spinning, wondering, hoping, needing. Because when you're in need, you're easier to control. And that's all they ever wanted. Let that sink in. They didn't want your heart, they wanted your hunger. Because a hungry heart will do anything. It will forgive the unforgivable. It will explain the inexplicable. It will crawl back, even when it's bleeding. But now, you know better. Now, you see the game for what it is, and you're done playing. You need to understand, your attention is not free, your energy is not cheap, your loyalty is not a leash, it's a crown, and not everyone deserves access to royalty, especially not the ones who think your emotions are a game to be won. So what do you do now? You starve their ego, you stop chasing, you stop texting, you stop showing up for someone who never truly showed up for you, and the silence that follows. That's not weakness, that's self-respect walking back into the room. Say this with me right now. My attention is a privilege, not a leash. Type it in the comments, shout it in your mind, write it in your journal, tattoo it on your soul, because from this point forward, you are no longer available to be someone's emotional backup plan. Show them, show yourself, show the world that the version of you who begged is gone, that version who chased, who tried to earn basic decency, who danced for crumbs. They don't live here anymore. You've taken your light back, you've reclaimed your energy, and they're about to realize the supply has been cut off. Stay with me, my friends, because the moment you stop feeding their ego, they start starving. And that's when the real regret begins. Let's go. Number 4, when you stop chasing, the real game begins. They thought you'd never stop chasing. That was their first mistake. See, the entire game only worked because you kept running after them, texting, calling, overthinking, over-explaining. You were the source. You were the fuel. You were the one holding the entire illusion together, and the moment you pulled your energy back, the foundation started to crack. The moment you chose silence over reaction, stillness over chasing, that's when the real game began. Not the one they controlled, the one you now own. They don't tell you this, my friends, but the second the hunter stops chasing, the prey panics. The thrill is gone. The ego starves. The performer loses the audience, and they don't know how to function without it, because their power didn't come from being loved, it came from being pursued. That's what their confidence was built on, the constant knowing that you would break first, that you would come back, that you would fill the silence before it got too loud. But not this time, not anymore. This time, the silence is your weapon, and it's not passive, it's piercing. It gets into their mind in ways your words never could, because when you go quiet, they're no longer distracted by your explanations. They're confronted by their own reflection. And that's a mirror most people can't stand to look into. They might pretend it doesn't matter. They might laugh louder, post more, flirt harder. But underneath all that performance is pure panic, because they didn't expect you to flip the script. They never expected you to walk away without a final plea. That's what terrifies them. Not the silence, but what it means. It means they no longer have access. It means they've lost their grip. It means their power over you is gone. You see, folks, silence doesn't echo unless there's an emptiness to bounce off of. And right now, that empty space they tried to fill with your attention, it's echoing, loud. They hear it in every quiet scroll through their phone, in every post that doesn't get your reaction, in every memory they swore they buried, because now they're replaying every word you ever said and wondering why you stopped saying anything at all. They might reach for bait, liking your posts, viewing your stories, dropping indirect messages. That's not connection. That's a test. They're trying to see if you're still watching, still hoping, still vulnerable. But you're not. You're evolving, and that scares them, because the version of you they could manipulate with a late-night text, that version is gone, and the new version, untouchable. Let's break the illusion. Their indifference was never real. It was a mask, a power play, a bluff, and it only worked because you believed it. But now that you've stopped responding, now that you've stepped off the stage, they're left staring at the spotlight with no one to perform for, and it's killing them, slowly, silently. You don't have to yell, you don't have to block, you don't have to prove a thing. Your stillness is speaking volumes, your silence is turning up the pressure. Because people like that, they can handle your anger, they can handle your tears, but your silence, that's unbearable, because silence doesn't tell them where they stand. And uncertainty to an ego-driven person, that's torture. They used to think, I can get them back whenever I want. Now they're wondering, did I lose them for good? That doubt is their undoing. That's when the obsession begins. That's when the roles reverse. Because now, you're not the one spinning. They are. Let's be clear, silence doesn't mean you don't care. It means you've finally chosen to care about yourself more. It means you've stopped feeding the fire that was only ever burning you. It means you've realized that the real flex isn't getting them back. It's not needing them back at all. So don't fall for their little tricks. Don't break the silence because they dropped breadcrumbs. You're not starving. You're not desperate. You're not in the maze anymore. You are the calm they can't disturb. You are the closure they'll never get. You are the ghost that haunts them, not to hurt them, but to remind them what they destroyed. Say this out loud right now. My stillness is the echo they now hear in every silent room. Drop it in the comments. Say it like you mean it. Say it for the version of you that once begged. Say it for the version of you that's done begging. Show them, show yourself, show the world that your peace is louder than any apology they could ever fake. And stay with me, because the longer your silence holds, the more their illusion collapses. And what's coming next is their regret, served in silence. Let's go. Number 5. They never rejected you. They rejected their own depth. Don't shrink to fit into someone else's shallowness. That's the truth they don't want you to realize. Because the moment you do, the moment you stop thinking you were the problem, the entire story they've been feeding you falls apart. My friends, they never actually rejected you. What they really did was reject depth, truth, intimacy, accountability. They rejected themselves. And you just happened to be the mirror that reflected everything they weren't ready to see. You weren't too much, you were too deep, and they were too scared to drown. Let's set this straight. Rejection hurts, yes, but most of the time, it's not even you being rejected. It's the reality of you, the intensity, the emotional honesty, the maturity, the depth you offered in a world full of superficial games and surface-level connections. They didn't push you away because you weren't lovable. They pushed you away because you were asking them to feel, to show up, to be real, and they couldn't handle it. Hey folks, imagine this. You are the ocean, deep, mysterious, full of life, full of storms and serenity, and here they come, with a paper boat. They step in, expecting to float. But the waves are too powerful, the silence too honest, the current too real. So what do? They don't evolve, they don't upgrade, they don't meet you at your level. They retreat, back to the shallow puddles where nothing is asked of them, where they can splash and play and pretend they're safe. But that's not your fault. That's their fear. They didn't ghost you because you were clingy. They ghosted you because you were clear. You said what you wanted. You opened up. You loved with presence. You expected respect, loyalty, emotional maturity. And they wanted attention without responsibility, affection without accountability. They wanted the benefits of love without the burden of growth. So stop saying they didn't want me. No, say they weren't ready for me, because what they rejected wasn't your value. It was the pressure of facing their own emotional emptiness. You stood there, handing them the truth on a silver plate, and they ran. Why? Because truth exposes illusion, and illusion is all they ever knew how to live in. Some of you still sit there thinking, what did I do wrong? What could I have done differently? Was I too sensitive, too serious, too deep? Let me answer that for you. No, you were exactly what they needed and exactly what they were too terrified to receive. You don't punish the ocean because someone brought a cup and couldn't carry it. You don't question your worth just because someone couldn't hold space for your soul. That's not your burden. That's not your shame. That's their unfinished healing, their emotional immaturity, their inability to swim in anything more than surface-level validation. They didn't break up with you because they didn't care. They broke up with you because caring required change, required effort, required healing. And healing, that's not a game most people are ready to play. So they chose easier, they chose familiar, they chose empty. And now they'll spend their days splashing around in puddles, pretending it's the ocean, while secretly missing the waves that almost taught them how to love. Let's be clear, you didn't get rejected, you got revealed. You saw the truth before it broke you. And now you walk with your head high because you didn't fail, you just refused to shrink. And that's what scared them. They'll say, you're too intense. No, you were honest. They'll say, you're too emotional. No, you were alive. They'll say, you were too much. No, you were just enough for the right person and too real for the wrong one. So let them run back to their puddles. Let them laugh a little louder, post a little happier, pretend like they don't miss the depth. Because they do. They just don't know how to return to it without first facing the version of themselves they tried to avoid. Say this with me now. I am not hard to love. I was just too real for the unreal. Type it in the comments. Write it like a declaration. Say it for the version of you who spent too long thinking you had to dim your light just to be seen. Show them, show yourself. Show the world that you are the ocean, and you will no longer apologize for your depth. Stay with me, my friends, because what's coming next, it's not just healing, it's becoming untouchable. Let's go. Number 6, their public smile is a mask. Their regret lives in silence. Their public smile is a mask. Don't let it fool you. You see the posts, the filters, the fake laughter, the I'm doing better without you performances. And if you're not careful, you'll start to believe it. You'll start to think they really moved on, that they're healed, happy, living their best life while you're out here bleeding in silence. But my friends, let's break the illusion right now. The louder they laugh online, the harder they're crying in silence. Because real peace doesn't scream. Real peace doesn't need to prove. And if someone is constantly performing joy for the world, it's because they're losing sleep behind the curtain. That's not healing, that's hiding, that's guilt dressed in designer, that's emptiness served on a plate of curated Instagram stories. You're seeing the highlight reel, not the breakdowns, not the 3 a.m. anxiety attacks, not the reread texts, not the desperate scrolls through your page, looking for any trace that you still care. Because the truth, they're not healed, they're haunted. They pretend they don't notice your silence, but it's the only thing they hear now. Hey folks, picture this. They're sitting at a table, smiling, toasting a glass like everything's perfect. But that glass, it's not wine, it's salt water. It looks good, it sparkles in the light. But the more they drink, the thirstier they become, because it can't satisfy, it can't heal, it can't replace what you gave them. They're dehydrated, emotionally starved. But their ego won't let them admit it, so they drink poison and call it growth. They may have left you for someone else, or maybe they just vanished, ghosted, disappeared like you never mattered, and now they're out here pretending like you were the problem, but they know the truth. Deep down, they remember the way you cared, the way you loved, the way you stayed when no one else would. And now that your energy is gone, the silence is deafening. The weight of what they lost is setting in, but they'll never show it, because showing regret means dropping the mask, and they're not ready for that. But don't get it twisted. They're watching, quietly, obsessively. Every story, every quote, every change in your vibe, they're checking to see if you've moved on, if you're glowing, if someone else is now benefiting from the love they took for granted. They'll never double tap, they'll never comment, but they're there, every single time, lurking in the shadows, because silence isn't peace for them, it's punishment. Let's be real, they expected you to break. They expected your world to fall apart without them. They expected to be the main character in your heartbreak story. But instead, you went quiet, you elevated, you stopped chasing. And that's what's killing them now, because they don't know how to respond to stillness. They were counting on drama, on tears, on a reaction, but you gave them none. And that's silence. It's forcing them to sit with everything they tried to avoid. Their pride won't let them reach out. But their guilt? It's crawling under their skin like poison. Their mind is stuck on replay, moments, words, mistakes. They'll try to drown it out with parties, with rebound relationships, with fake glow-ups, but nothing hits like the absence of someone who once made them feel seen. And now that you're gone, they're invisible to themselves. They don't regret losing you because you've changed. They regret not appreciating you when you were still theirs to lose. And now, they're realizing they can't replace what they never understood in the first place. So stop believing the performance. Stop letting their fake peace disrupt your real one. That smile they flash on social media. It's held together by ego and fear. The real story is written in their quiet moments, in the late nights. In the silence they pretend doesn't hurt, but cuts deeper than any word ever could. Say this with me now. Their silence doesn't mean peace. It means punishment. Write it in the comments. Let it be your reminder. Let it be your weapon. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world that you're not fooled by masks anymore. You see through the smiles. You hear the silence, and you know they're not okay. Stay with me, because their mask is cracking, and what's coming next is their full collapse. Let's go. Number 7. Healing isn't moving on fast. It's moving inward deep. Healing isn't about moving on fast. It's about moving inward deep. Some of you are in such a rush to get over them, to find someone new, to prove you're fine, to slap a glow-up on your wounds and post it with a filter. But my friends, that's not healing, that's hiding, that's panic dressed as progress, that's ego pretending it doesn't hurt. But true healing, it's quieter, it's slower, it's not about the world seeing you happy, it's about you finally sitting with yourself long enough to remember who you are without the noise. See, you didn't lose your soulmate, you lost a distraction, a living, breathing interruption to your own self-worth. They weren't your forever. They were a mirror showing you how far you had drifted from your own value. You didn't lose someone who loved you. You lost someone who used your love as a cushion for their cowardice. And now you get to rebuild, not for revenge, not for attention, but for peace. Hey folks, here's the truth they never tell you. Peace doesn't come from being chosen. It doesn't come from the apology. It doesn't come from seeing them cry or beg or say, "I miss you." Peace comes the moment you stop needing any of that, the moment you choose yourself, the moment you stop chasing closure and start becoming it. Because the minute you realize that your healing was never dependent on their actions, but on your awareness, that's the moment everything changes. You were looking for healing in all the wrong places. You thought if they just gave you a reason, if they just gave you clarity, you could move on. But listen closely. Closure is not a gift you wait to receive. It's a decision you make in silence. It's when you finally look in the mirror and say, "I don't need to be understood. I need to be free." Let's be real. Part of the reason you stayed so long was because you thought they meant something bigger. You thought they were a sign, a soulmate, some divine connection sent to complete you. But real love doesn't leave you questioning your worth. It doesn't trigger your trauma over and over and call it passion. It doesn't hurt you, then tell you to calm down. What you called a soul tie was often just a trauma loop, and you kept spinning in it, thinking it was destiny. You don't need another person to fix that. You don't need someone new to distract you. You need depth, stillness, solitude, the kind that cuts deep but heals even deeper. You need to sit with every wound and say, "I see you, I'm not running anymore." That's healing, that's power. And yes, it will be uncomfortable, it will be lonely, it will feel like you're falling apart at times. But that pain, that's not you breaking, that's you shedding the need to prove, to chase, to be chosen by people who don't even know how to love themselves. You're not walking away from love, you're walking back to truth. Stop scrolling through their page hoping to see regret. Stop comparing your timeline to theirs. They may have moved on quickly. Let them. Because when someone replaces you fast, it's not a reflection of your worth. It's proof of their emptiness. Let them run. Let them post. Let them laugh. Because none of it touches your healing when you realize you're no longer chasing peace. You've become it. You were never asking for too much. You were just asking the wrong person. You were never too emotional. You were just too honest in a world built on pretend. And now that you've stopped begging for clarity, for closure, for answers, you're finally hearing the one voice that matters, your own. Say this with me now. I don't need closure. I am the closing chapter. Drop it in the comments. Declare it for the past version of you that waited too long. Declare it for the future version that will never beg again. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world that healing isn't about being seen. It's about seeing yourself clearly for the first time in a long time. So here's the truth. Your healing was never about them. It was about finally waking up to who you've always been, beneath the chase, beneath the pain, beneath the silence. You didn't lose love. You lost the illusion of it, and now you're not chasing, you're not proving, you're not waiting, you're becoming. If this message hit deep like this video, subscribe for more Stoic truths and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And drop this in the comments right now. I am the closing chapter. Show them, show yourself, show the world. You're not broken, you've just begun.